Only 6 more days until the NFL season, and today, since we only have the preseason to look at, we're going to be diving into some film, and there's so much that goes into how rookie quarterbacks perform in the preseason. Obviously, some players get drafted to some better teams, some have better coaches, and some get more playing time, so please keep that in mind. These aren't my overall predictions of how well I think they're going to do in the regular season, or it's just like a preseason award list, I guess. This isn't who I think the team should have drafted instead, just looking at the preseason in a vacuum, who performed the best. And one more thing is, all 5 of these guys impressed me. It is unreal how they all look like they're going to work out in the NFL. And even though a guy might be lower on this list than you might think, I think all 5 of these guys might end up being better than anyone coming out of the draft next year. With that in mind, let's get into it. And the first person on this list is a person I absolutely was not expecting, but the film doesn't lie. And it happens to be the 5th quarterback taken in the draft in Mac Jones. Now, on the surface, based on arm talent, he's probably number 5 on this list. Based on mobility, he's probably number 5 on this list. Overall talent, he's probably number 5 as well. But if that were the case, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning wouldn't be top 100 quarterbacks of all time, because despite all of that, Mac Jones in the preseason was almost perfect. Not only was he the only one to take the starting job as a backup, but he did so from a former Heisman, number 1 overall pick, former MVP, and Cam Newton was playing really well during the preseason. That's just how good Mac Jones was playing. He was methodical. His ball placement was calculated on time. He ran the offense to perfection. Even though he was, quote, less talented guy, he made every throw he needed to, never made any game-altering mistakes. He didn't throw any interceptions. He was 36 of 52, which is 69%, and he earned the starting role from a team looking to compete. Now, can I say out of the draft I saw this coming? Yes and no. I can say yes because this was absolute best case scenario from what I saw from Mac Jones. When I looked at his floor and his ceiling, how I thought he would come into the league, this is absolutely the best I thought he could ever be. So I did see this potential in him. I just never thought if he'd had 5 years to do this, he'd be able to do that. So very impressed with Mac Jones. And I don't have any specific plays to go over in this case because they're so identical to each other, besides maybe this throw that really impressed me, but he just did everything he needed to. So moving on to the second person on this list, I actually have the next lowest player drafted in Justin Fields. When we look at Justin Fields, we're going to start to see some of the imperfections in not only him, but the offense. Because watching these Bears games, it was a noticeable difference in receivers not creating separation downfield, but also just the line straight up losing their one-on-one matchups. We saw Justin Fields create a lot of plays with his legs, and the first thing I wanted to touch on, it was always necessary. He looked to stay in the pocket and do his damage from there, which showed a lot of maturity and patience, but when the pocket inevitably and way too soon collapsed, he was able to take off and make plays. But the receivers also did a poor job coming back to the ball and giving him a target, something I don't think we're going to see when we have Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney, who are both excellent in that respect. Here's what I'm talking about where it went well. There's a winding seconds in the half. He wants to stay in the pocket. He moves to create some more room and time, but also becomes dual threat. In this case, the receiver comes back, opens himself up for the second play, and is able to get the yardage to put themselves in the better situation and inevitably get a field goal before the half is down. Here's an NFL-like throw that was highly impressive, and if you can consistently make these throws, you're going to have a job for a very, very long time. And here's another play I want to talk about. This is a deep shot play. He shows plays action, so we physically can't see the defense develop off the snap or doesn't see who's blitzing, which to me doesn't get talked about enough. There are a lot of good things about play action, but in the process of snapping the ball to faking the handoff, the defense might be a completely different coverage from what you saw pre-snap. So he turns around, his first option isn't there. He does see a free rusher ready to come lay a massive hit on him. He sees the second read very quickly, stands tall, and delivers a perfect ball downfield. So impressive. To me, he did enough to show he's absolutely NFL ready. Almost none of the pre-draft critiques held up once he hit the field, and this is why he's the second rated quarterback to me. And next on my list, I have quarterback Zach Wilson. And if you're thinking right now, Jem, what? Trevor Lawrence? You don't have Trevor Lawrence even in the top 3? What are you doing? I promise, just stay with me. We're going to cover that. Don't worry. We'll get to Trevor Lawrence. But Zach Wilson's release was fast. He was on time. He often knew pre-snap where he was going with the ball, which walks the thin line between being a problem and being really good reading the defense pre-snap. I'm going to go the latter in this case more. He converted 3rd and longs, which can be really hard for young quarterbacks. He stood in the pocket and delivered on like this throw here. Overall, he was very impressive. He didn't look too small for the NFL, and I mean that physically. He didn't look too tiny out there like a lot of people thought he might. But the difference between him and Trevor Lawrence was very small to me, and it was very, very close. And to me, they both got outshined by the two quarterbacks taken later in the drafts. But let's talk about Trevor Lawrence. I only gave the nod to Zach Wilson for one reason and one reason only, because I expected more for Trevor Lawrence. And Zach Wilson looked better than he did in college, and Trevor looked the exact same to me as he did at Clemson, which is still very impressive because he is still a very talented quarterback, and it also could be because of the injury he had in the offseason. And I don't want it to sound like I'm completely roasting him, and it could be because I just did a deep film dive and just looked into Gardner Minshew, but I really didn't see him making all these insane throws that makes him that much better than Gardner Minshew was. Whereas Matt clearly did things Cam Newton couldn't do, Justin Fields clearly did things that Andy Dalton couldn't do, and even though he looked very good, this is why I still had him behind those guys and even behind Zach Wilson. And guys, it is still preseason. We cannot put too much stake in this. Trevor might very end up well being the best prospect out of anyone, but as a preseason, he just wasn't. He just didn't show me that step I was looking from the college to the NFL level. I might as well have put up his Clemson highlights, or if you didn't know who Trevor Lawrence was, or if you didn't know he was the #1 starter, I don't even know how all that impressed you would be. He had a very good game statistically in his last preseason game, but he just didn't blow me away like I thought he was going to. Which leads me to my last guy in Trey Lance, who I might add might also end up being the best one in this draft. He might win the first ring as well because he's definitely in the best situation by far. He had some of the highest highs, but definitely some of the lowest lows out of any of these quarterbacks. He didn't really show how he knew how to control his throws, and mostly not even talking about the accuracy, but the speed. If a guy's running open 10 yards downfield, you don't need to throw it 65 miles an hour. Arm talent is impressive, but so are first downs and wins. Drops are oppositely very unimpressive. He reminded me a lot of Drew Lock in the preseason, a guy who clearly has limitless talent, but isn't always quite sure what the defense is doing, becomes indecisive, and becomes late on throws, or just takes a stack because he isn't sure if he's going to be right or not. He will learn this as time goes on, and Kyle Shanahan will coach him up better than anyone. But I do need to remind everyone, he didn't have any designed quarterback runs. Which do you think they're going to do in the regular season? 100%. Kyle doesn't want him getting hurt or showing the defense what he has for him in the sets he's going to be in, but he'll be running counters, read options, draws, quarterback power runs. He's going to look so much better with time and with a full playbook. But just because of how unsure he looked at the time, and none of the other quarterbacks had that, that's why he's last on my list, but again, could be #1 within the next few years. And I'm so curious to know what you guys think. My list was Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance. I know Trevor Lawrence was really low. He did have a very impressive game. Zach Wilson, I believe, didn't even play in the last preseason game. Actually, I know he didn't. But what I saw from him, he took a step up from college. He looked way more ready. Trevor Lawrence kind of looked the exact same as he did at Clemson. Mac Jones absolutely blew me away. Justin Fields blew me away. I feel like all these guys are going to be the starters eventually. It's just a matter of time. I am so excited for this season. Like I said, it's only 6 days away. Let me know what you guys think. What would your guys' list be? Who do you think is going to have the most success? And make sure to like this video if you like videos like these. Comment down below what you think, and make sure to subscribe if you enjoy daily sports content. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.